Hello, and welcome to the Outcry Theatre Podcast. I'm Becca Johnson-Spinos, and I'm the Artistic Director of Outcry Theatre. Every episode of this podcast delves into the artistic process of creating theater. This episode is about our current production of Frankenstein, adapted by Nick Dear from the classic Mary Shelley novel. In this episode, we decided to try something a little bit different, and I spoke to the actors playing the creature and Victor Frankenstein several times throughout the process as they delved into these extremely difficult characters and text. Hi, this is Miss Becca, and I'm here on day one of blocking rehearsals for Frankenstein, and I'm here with the two guys playing the creature. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Logan Beutel.
I'm Harrison Polen.
All right, guys, how was day one?
Exhausting.
Very exhausting. This is definitely going to be the most physically demanding and physically exhausting role I have ever been a part of.
This is going to be the hardest role I've ever played, just period, just all around, just every aspect of it.
So today we sort of did the first opening part of the show, which is y'all's birth and very early childhood. Talk us through like a little bit of some of the things that are going on and like why it's so challenging.
Well, we basically wake up. We still have sort of an electric current running through us-ish, and we have to deal with that for a while, and we also have to deal with the fact that we're opening our eyes for the first time, and we have to deal with all that, and then we have to learn how to crawl, and we have to learn how to walk and run. We have a short temper, and we get frustrated pretty easily.
We're like kind of like a humanoid kind of like figure because we're not walking like a normal human does. We're walking around as if we have like a limp or we have a leg that's longer than the other one and we can't walk properly because we just don't know what we're doing. But we learn how to do these things and they excite our character and they make us happy and we like start laughing and like finding joy in these things. And I think it's a really interesting aspect of seeing someone learn so fast and like finding the joy of just learning how to like walk and run.
So what's the best part so far? I think I know what your favorite part is.
Best part is when we find a kettle and we're basically, it's like the first inanimate object we come into contact with, and we're just like banging it on the floor and chewing it and throwing it around, doing what like a baby would do, and like it's my favorite.
So how are you guys feeling? What's your mood?
Oh my god.
I'm excited. I'm scared at the same time, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just so excited to start this process and like delve deep into this because there's just so much to like uncover and to like delve into, just like with whether it's like his movement, his voice, just like everything he does is something that I've like never done before.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about playing this role is usually, I mean, with every role, you basically have to unlearn the story and just pretend you're going through it for the first time every time you perform it. But with Creature, you basically have to unlearn everything you know, like as a being that exists in the world. You have to relearn basically all that you know, and like you have to re-coordinate. It's crazy. It's gonna be crazy, but I love it.
All right. Any other thoughts about day one?
Man, I'm tired.
It's gonna be great. I'm like, I can just already tell, and like I know how much fun this is gonna be.
Yeah, I think it's like quite the perfect show for Outcry, where it starts with so little language and so much movement, and then moves into the deep kind of language, because at Outcry we like, you know, both movement and obviously very intellectual language and people operating on a high level, communicating with each other. So it's cool to get both. I'm excited about it. We did a lot of work today. Mm-hmm. Yay, all right. Day one. Yeah. Hello, Miss Becca here again. We're here once again with the boys playing Creature.
Hello.
Hi there.
And now we also have our two boys playing Victor. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Dylan Weand.
Hi, my name is Ian Lawson.
All right, so we're I think into week 3 now, and tonight we just choreographed the beginning or middle section of the Act 2 dance. How was that? How'd that go?
Very fast.
I would agree with that. It's really cool because it starts off with just Creature and Victor having what looks to be like power shifts, although it mainly looks like the Creature is winning this battle. But it's really cool to see in a dance form and not just a scene, power shifts from moment to moment and from dance move to dance move, whether it be us throwing him or him trying to fight back, but it's just not doing anything to us. And I think it's a really interesting way to show what's been going on so far in the story.
Yeah, I mean, in typical Act 2 dance form, it's kind of like a summary of what's happened so far, but it's really more about finally illustrating the struggle between the two main power sources in the play. So, in addition to the dance, we also finally have our victors in our play. They're mostly not in Act 1. We blocked the big scene between the two of them where they finally meet face to face on Thursday. What was that like, guys?
Well, Victor and Creature are up in the mountains in Switzerland, and they meet face to face for the first time. And it's basically, really the whole scene is basically just their personalities working off each other. One is an emotional person who can't not express how he feels all the time. Mostly it's anger. And the other one is someone who's always trying to be in control of their emotions. And it's basically those two personalities working off each other the entire scene. It's the pivotal moment of the play. I think the rest of the play and the drama and the story being compelling is dependent on that moment in the play working really well.
It was really exciting. Like, we really haven't been doing a lot so far, and coming in and like jumping in and being in that big scene and really having it be that intense, it was just really exhilarating and I loved it.
Yeah, I've been pretty nervous for this process, but working with Logan and Harrison and Ian is pretty great, and just like tackling this really angry scene that I'm not that great at. But it's a really cool scene to tackle because I've never really dealt with it before. It's kind of out of my character type, so I am really excited to keep working on it.
Yeah, so I mean, it was really important to me that the two characters have this really dynamic, explosive kind of connection. And that's what I was like pushing these guys to work on. And, you know, we're still at the beginning of the process, but that's what I'm pushing for. And I also, of course, want a lot of physical connection and interaction between the two of you guys. Were you guys prepared for like how much you were going to get thrown around? I'm asking Victor, were you prepared for how much you guys were going to get thrown around by the creature in that scene?
Actually, no. I was expecting a little bit of, contact and like circles and just the power dynamic shifting on stage, but the whole throwing on the floor, everything, it's pretty cool though.
And I mean, I have to admit, I was pretty scared at first about it, especially working with Logan, who's like a big man who could like easily like break me in half. But it turned out to be a lot of fun, and it's exciting.
So are you guys like exhausted yet? Like, what's your creature exhaustion level? Thinking about having to do all of Act 1. Like, we're basically done blocking your stuff for Act 1. How are you like terrified? What's your creature exhaustion level like?
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably 703. It's like It's the most physical role I've ever done and probably ever will do, because it's an Outcry show and because it's Frankenstein's monster. Not just like lifting people up and throwing them on the floor on a scene-by-scene basis, but also having to crawl around on all fours and be crouched all the time. It really takes its toll. It's worth it, though. It's fun. It's some of the coolest movement I've ever had the opportunity to do, and I really love it.
Yeah, so it was really important to me to have the creature move like an animal, even though I think traditionally he, like walks kind of like a zombie. It was like really important to me that he be this very animalistic person when he's an animal, when he's walking on all fours, and that when he was like a man, that he would kind of struggle and be a little bit more difficult. Whereas we have Victor, who is like very elegant and I think moves in a very smooth fashion. And when they first meet, that's kind of the dynamic. But I'm looking forward to seeing the future where a creature becomes more human and Victor becomes more animal-y. So that's going to be a fun challenge as we move into Act 2. We're like basically done with Act 1, guys. How you feeling?
Act 1 has been just the small stuff we do. It still has been so great and so exciting, and it makes me like so pumped for Act 2.
How excited are you guys about High Hopes?
Okay, well, High Hopes is a Panic at the Disco song that we're going to use for a dance that Victor does, and for the Frankenstein dance call, it was the song that the Victors danced to, and it was just so like perfect for the character and so much fun to dance to, and I'm just like, words cannot express how excited I am. When the cast list first came out, I drove around Dallas for 3 hours listening to High Hopes on repeat for those 3 hours. So I'm pretty excited.
Logan also got lifted for the first time today. How was that, Logan?
The scariest thing I've ever done.
Logan is a large man, so he does not get lifted frequently.
It was the scariest thing ever. But, new experiences, they do you good.
Ah, yes. All right, this is us signing off. Say bye, everyone.
Oh, bye, there.
Toodles.
Toodles. Hi, I'm here again with my creatures.
Logan.
And Harrison.
And I'm here with my victors.
Dylan.
Indian.
And it's been quite a few weeks since the last time we met. So we're actually going into tech next week. And we're at that point in the process talking to you guys. So a lot has happened. A lot has been blocked. And a lot has been done off book. But I think I'm going to start, instead of talking about the process, which we'll get to in just a sec, I do want to talk a little bit about the script, which we didn't talk about the last time. For people who are maybe familiar with the story, what makes this adaptation different than maybe a traditional version of Frankenstein that they may have seen either in a movie or the book?
Every other adaptation of Frankenstein that is out there, pretty much every other one, is from Victor's perspective. As well, it sees him in sort of the heroic light, and Creature is sort of the villain. It's not as black and white as that, but it is sort of in that format. I mean, what makes this adaptation different is that it is a lot of the time put from Creature's perspective, and it really gets the dichotomy down between his tender side and his sinisterness and anger and frustration at the world.
I think another thing that this adaptation takes that a lot of others don't is showing the creature's emotions in a much more severe and like intense way. Because like when you really think about the Frankenstein's monster, you think a hulking green monster who just walks around in a stiff fashion. But with this adaptation, you see how the creature just wants to be accepted. He wants to find love. He wants to be a part of society. But humanity just keeps pushing him back. So throughout the story, he basically just loses that intention and starts becoming more and more angry at everything within the world.
And I think the same thing kind of applies for Victor. I think this adaptation of the story really dives into what he feels rather than just showing him as this like generic mad scientist kind of guy who builds this man. It like really shows you who he is and what he wants and how he feels. And I think it's really interesting that it dives into both of those characters way more than you would get if it's just a mad scientist guy and a big green guy who walks real stiff.
So I think what's interesting about the way he's adapted the characters, he's focused a lot on Victor being a very cold and unfeeling person, and the creature being a very warm and very emotional person, which is not necessarily the way it is portrayed in the book, and certainly not necessarily the way it's been portrayed on film. So we're now going back through the play for the second time. For people who don't know how plays work, we block the show, and when I block the show, I do a lot of acting work as well, which I know is different for different companies, but we do a lot of acting work, and now we're going back through the show for the second time. We're almost done, actually. Only a few scenes left. What was it like going back to the beginning and having to learn how to talk and walk again?
Man, it was weird. What going back to the beginning was a huge indicator of how difficult it is to be doing multiple performances in a weekend, because you're essentially living a person's life in an evening or an afternoon, and you have to learn to start out de-evolved from where you yourself have come in life, and you basically have to go to trace your steps back to where you are in life, and possibly even further than where you are in life. So that is very interesting.
So what's made this process different or special or somehow unique to all of the other shows that we've done?
I've never really played a character like Victor before. Normally, the characters I play are very, very emotional, and Victor is very, very not emotional, and so it's kind of been a challenge trying to really pull myself back.
Yeah, Victor is nothing like I've really played before. He just has this such aggression and perfection that I haven't really had with a character. I mainly play more childlike characters, or just the good guy characters, you could say. And Victor has a lot of flaws, and just portraying all those flaws and his experiences with Creature and all his anger is really interesting and nothing I've done before.
So not only is this like different than what you've ever played before, this is also your first lead part at Outcry. Not your last though, since you've just been cast as Christopher in Curious Incident. What has it been like to sort of like have to step up to the plate and take on all of the huge responsibility and I guess take on the expectations of what being a lead here is and like how much that requires?
Okay, so I have played a lead before, but never at Outcry, and it is a totally different experience. Becca pushes her leads to go to new levels and have a lot of in-depth emotions with their characters, and to make sure each moment is really crisp and clear, and just working on making sure the show is really giving the message we want the audience to give, and being that big lead role in conveying that message is really tough, I would say, but it's really rewarding also. I have really loved stepping up to the challenge of all the blocking, all the lines, all the dances. It has been a lot, but it has been very exciting, I would say.
I don't know that we've ever had a more demanding physical character than the Creature. And I don't know that we've ever had more kind of characters that are grappling with each other, really, like just throwing each other around, than we have with Victor and Creature together. So talk a little bit about that and what that's like.
In all the Victor and Creature scenes, there's a lot of moving around all the time. But when things start to get very aggressive, we choke them a lot and we kind of throw them around a lot. We sort of use a pile driver on them many times, notably through the show.
Okay, I'm going to keep this short. Victor is thrown around a lot. He's choked, he is essentially dragged and just slammed on the ground.
It hurts sometimes. Sometimes when I get thrown to the ground, it doesn't feel too good, but, we keep going anyway. Also, I learned through this process that I walk weird, so it sounds dumb, but, like, that actually has been real hard for me getting over that, like, having to learn how to walk like a real man.
So there's a lot of dances in the show, and some of them are in the text, like the Industrial Revolution dance and the female creature dance, the dream sequence. But of course, in true Outcry fashion, we've also added a couple of dances, including the Act 2 dance, which is Tear by Sunlux, and High Hopes by Panic at the Disco. And I want to talk about them in terms of storytelling and how much they bring to the show, and just sort of like what the process of that has been. And I think I want to start with Tear, because that has been, I think, the most challenging dance we've probably ever done, and took a whopping 11 hours to block.
Tear is hard. It is definitely the most physically demanding dance I've ever done. It's long, it's just brutal the entire way through. However, it's also the coolest thing ever. It just does such a great job at showing the constant power struggle between the creature and Victor, because the creature obviously has the strength to toss around Victor, but Victor has the manipulation capabilities to make the creature do what serves Victor the best. And I think nothing else in the show shows that as good as Tear does. And of course, there's lifts galore, there's throws, there's long jumps. It's just a constant wave of physicality that I never thought I'd want to do, but it's so much fun.
So I was really pumped for it, and it's a really good dance. So I was super pumped when each rehearsal, it took about 3 rehearsals to block the entire thing. And then we put the whole thing together, and I had no idea what I was in for, because I was lying on the floor out of breath after that dance.
I've never really been much of a dancer, and so jumping into this process and having to do all these super crazy dances was really overwhelming at first, but somehow something clicked in my brain halfway through this process, and now it just makes sense to me. And so now I really like dancing, and dancing's a lot of fun. The entire dance is sort of like a superhero battle, and so it's like these 2 super powerful people fighting each other. That's what it is. It really is a metaphor for how the power struggle works in their relationship.
Okay, I want to talk about High Hopes, which we talked briefly about already. Tell me what the dance is, what it's like. We're in the process of doing it off book now. Talk a little bit about what that's like, and what it is, and what it's like being that guy in High Hopes.
So High Hopes is kind of just a really wild ride. It's a lot like Tear, with the idea that Victor never really gets a complete break during the dance. And it's this really cool thematic thing where even though Victor is this super elegant man, and you would never expect him to do it, he's dancing to this hip hop song, and you would never think that it would work, but it works so well, because he's such can't think of a better word, but he's very arrogant and like full of himself, and he's so like into what he's doing, and he's so passionate that like that idea just makes so much sense for him as a character. It's so much fun to do that dance and just like be that guy and be out there and like have all this swag and stuff like that.
So I conceived this dance when I was stuck in traffic on the way to Peter Pan, and I was having a really horrible day, and I was going to be late to meet Dylan to actually spike the floor. And then in this flash of brilliance, I imagined this dance where Victor I was listening to High Hopes by Panic at the Disco, which is off the new album. And I had it hit me, this visual idea of Victor dancing to that and building the female creature. And I knew it was going to be a very prop-heavy dance, that it was going to involve him having to do a lot of manipulating props and moving props around and doing it with ease.
Okay, so the hard thing about the props is it's kind of a multi-step process. First off, you have to learn the movements, and the movements themselves are pretty quick. You learn the movements of how you're supposed to grab and pass off the props, and you do that at home. And then when you get to the rehearsal space, you start actually having the props there, and it's really overwhelming at first because it's so different than when you're like at home just like moving your hands around like, yes, this is what I have to do. Once there's actually like something there, it's freaky, and you're so reliant on other people, and so it's kind of just like it's a team building exercise.
Let's talk about the two dances that are like in the script, and let's talk about them together. They're both in Act 1. We have an Industrial Revolution dance, which in the original version features a steam train rolling on stage, not in our version. And the creature has a dream about seeing a female creature.
The Industrial Revolution dance, from a creature standpoint, is very much him going out into the world for the first time and seeing basically mankind at this point in history. I mean, all the movements are very rigid and very sharp and very aggressive, and it's his first sort of look at what men are in this time period and how evil they can be and how awful they can be. And it also plays into a lot of his fear of the world around him. I mean, he's a man baby at this point, so he's seeing all these weird machines moving around, and it's just a very important thing for the creature's character to see the world he lives in for the first time.
Now, the female creature dance, in my opinion, is one of the most important movement pieces or scenes in the entire show, because it just shows even further the creature's power of emotion. Like, he wants to find love, he wants all of that, and it's a beautiful dance. It can be happy, it ends pretty sadly, but throughout the entire thing it's just constant beautiful movement interchanged with sporadic movement, which we like to refer as electrocution because it's what it looks like. But it's just, in my opinion, it's probably the most beautiful dance I've ever been a part of.
You guys made quite a commitment to the show by doing a crazy thing. You want to talk about the crazy thing you did?
We shaved a strip on her head.
Yeah, it's been in like we've been talking about it for a while, and like I like knew we were like serious about it. But, like, when me and Logan went to go get it done, the moment that the barber began to cut my head, it all hit me that I would have a strip of my hair cut out for the next few months of my life. I have zero regrets, but it's definitely one of the craziest things I've ever done for a show. But I couldn't be happier about it.
I am fortunate because I have long hair and I can just conceal it basically at school. Only people who like follow me on social media at school like know about it. but I can basically conceal it. I just think it makes me feel a lot more like the character and it makes me feel a lot more in it. And I just think it also just really shows I just think will really speak to Outcry's character as a theater that doesn't kind of half do things, but we fully throw ourselves in it.
It really allows these two super handsome dudes who are supposed to be grotesque to maybe sort of look that way. We have some amazing makeup design by Lindsay Brando, who's doing all of our makeup for them. And because they have this shaved strip in their head, they're able to have stitches all the way through their head. There's a lot of moments in the show, both from the creature and Victor, where they say, I am different. I know I'm different. And one of them is different on the outside and one of them is different on the inside. And it's a really interesting contrast. So last question, why should people come see our production of Frankenstein?
If nothing else, it's just a very thought-provoking story. I think it's one of my favorite stories ever, and I think a lot of people have misconceptions with what the story is, given that the most popular adaptation is the 30s movie. I think a story about differences and overcoming them and dealing with them, I think, is a very important, very relevant theme.
Being much simpler than Logan, this show is just so cool. Just from the first scene to the last, it's one of the coolest productions I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, for one, I think the script has a lot of amazing themes about love and difference, but also just Becca's amazing blocking and choreography and just vision for this show has really inspired me. And I just really think her take on it is really interesting and is worth seeing.
There's never a moment that you will be bored in this show. You will always be interested in it. It is absolutely incredible. It's gonna be so different from any other adaptation of Frankenstein you've seen, and really any other show of Nick Deer's Frankenstein, because this is Outcry, and it's gonna be different, and it's gonna be amazing.
Thank you guys so much for doing this with me.
Thank you.
Oh, Thank you so much for joining us for our latest episode of the Outcry Theatre Podcast. Frankenstein still has 4 more performances this weekend, and you can purchase your tickets or find out more about this production at outcrytheatre.com. This podcast has been produced by me, Becca Johnson-Spinos, and edited by Jason Johnson-Spinos. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your theater-loving friends.